Hey y'all, the Game Boy Advance is finally on the Switch. And with that comes a lot of games that a lot of people missed out on, but also a lot of games from my childhood that stuck with me. The GBA was part of that generation of games that I loved. GameCube, PS2, Xbox, Game Boy Advance, DS. I feel like that was one of my favorite eras of gaming because of creativity, and the Game Boy Advance had a lot of that. So with the announcements of games that we've gotten and new games to come, I thought it would be a good idea to let y'all know what games I wanted to see. We're gonna get right into it. First and foremost, you know what to do, like and subscribe. And if you want more videos like this, please let me know. And let me know what Game Boy Advance games you want to see. But first, a quick couple of honorable mentions. With these honorable mentions, I'm gonna be naming games that I think may have trouble coming to the system, or they might have another version of that game already. But the first one is Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town. And it's now called Story of Seasons, which you might be familiar with because it does have a remake on the Switch. But I want to see this game because the older version, it has a lot of charm that is not in the new version. This game really brought me more into the farming simulation. It had a cute charm about it. The music was great. The characters was great. And it kept a lot of the culture in there and a lot of the name changes. But because of that name change, I don't know if we'll be able to get it. Sims Busting Out and the Herb Sims in the City on the Game Boy Advance will be dope too, because it's another look into the Sims with a different look. Because you actually control one person and you move that person around like you're on an adventure. The story is quirky, it follows a storyline, and the customization and collecting things and raising your reputation up, things like that, getting to know people, is all there. It was fun. It was a fun, quirky, and weird look at the Sims from a different perspective, and I would love folks to try it out. Don't know if they will put it on there though. And last, I got Advanced Guardian Heroes. And Advanced Guardian Heroes was a sequel to a game on the Sega Saturn that a lot of people had, right? But that game was dope. And if you like beat 'em ups, this game had a bunch of heroes to choose from with different styles and gameplay and upgrades. And it was just fun to play with. And I think this would be a great game to showcase the online features, but also just a cool beat 'em up to get into with your homies. But with that being said, let's get into my top 10. Coming out first is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. And the reason it's so low on the list is because I got 2 copies of this game already. And I love it and I still play it. But I mostly want this to come for other people to enjoy this series. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is a tactical JRPG game. So if you like things like that, Fire Emblem, or if you play the tactical game Tactics Ogre, grid-based, it had a bunch of dope characters and the job system was outstanding on here and the character development was cool. And what I like about it is it was part of the Ivalice Alliance, if you know about that. It took place where a bunch of games were all in the same universe. Final Fantasy 12, Revenant Wings, Tactics Advance, War Alliance. So the art style is consistent, the speech is consistent. It was a dope story in handheld form. And if you play through this story, you'll understand why I love this game so much, because it just brought the imagination out into a different light. It's one I really hope that other people can get to play. So Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, I think, should definitely be on the Game Boy Advance Online. Coming in at number 9. So coming in at number 9 is a very slept on series made by Atlus. Let me tell y'all about Summer Night Sword Craft Story. This game was dope because it was a little bit different. If you like Tales games, it had that side-scrolling action JRPG thing going on where you fight with a weapon on the side scrolling thing, like Tales of Fantasia, if you remember that game, which you might hear about later. You had a magical creature that was kind of like your partner. So it was kind of a mix of a visual novel, fighting game, JRPG, dating sim type thing. You build a relationship with your partner, and you would go into dungeons and like actually fix your weapon, find your weapon, and keep creating your own weapon. And that's what I liked about it, the many different weapons you could use and the different characters you can use. And depending on your answers, your starting partner would be different, so you never know who would be your partner. So it also helped with replayability. But this game had a lot of charm to it as well, and it was different. And Atlus had a lot of slept on hits back in the day. I want folks to actually get the chance to play this one. Will it come to the system? I don't know. But it's definitely one that would build the library up very well. Speaking of a Tales game, coming in at number 8 is Tales of Fantasia. And the reason I think they should put this one on here is because I didn't see it on the Super Nintendo console. It's originally a Super Nintendo game, but it was remade for the Game Boy Advance. And again, it had the Tales formula, good story, good plot, good characters, but also it was on a side-scrolling type fighting game vibe like the game I just listed. And while some of the stuff that you know is there, the familiar moves and arts and character tropes, the game was a good story. And for a handheld game, again, this game just brought out more variety to the Game Boy Advance as far as JRPGs and action JRPGs. And I think a lot of people would enjoy this, especially if you're a Tales fan. So definitely would love to see Tales of Fantasia, because Tales of Fantasia was actually the first Tales game, and a lot of the lore in the other games derived from this. So you might see things or people that you're familiar with in other games in this game, and I think a lot of people should be able to play this because it was fun. Coming in at number 7, we saw that we got Wario Land 3 for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color online. So you might as well throw in the Wario Land 4 because it's probably the best Wario Land game. The plot always involves Wario trying to get his money up, get his coins, but the gameplay is what stands out. The way the game looks, the design. Wario Land 4 is one of the most fun games I ever had on my Game Boy Advance. And this time that kind of differentiated him from Mario by actually giving him a health bar. And if you lose your health, then you lose all the items you had and you got to start over. But the game was fun. It was pretty fun. Wario's personality shined in this game. The colors pop. It definitely showed what the Game Boy Advance could do with the limits of it being a handheld. And I think a lot of people would love to play this game. I definitely want to see this one. We all know Game Freak for the Pokemon series, but what if I told you they actually made a game that was dope as hell that a lot of people slept on? Drill Dozer is the game I really want to see. You know, it's not number 1, but I really wanted to show it some love because a lot of people don't know about this game. And it's somewhat of an action platformer / Metroidvania, but you control Jill and her Drill Dozer, and there's a bunch of stages with enemies. And the thing is, you use this big machine and you drill into things, of course, because of course it's Drill Dozer. But each world has a mini boss, a boss, so it felt like some Metroid, Mega Man type vibes. But the gameplay and the thing that made it different around the time was it came with like a rumble pack. So it had rumble support in the game, and anytime you drill, you would feel it. And I think that would be real good for Nintendo Online because HD Rumble is great. And I think we don't see this game a lot or the sequels a lot because of that function, but at the time it was pretty good. And with the game, you kind of use the drill. You use your drill by activating one of the shoulder buttons, R and L. You go forward and backwards. You gotta look at this gameplay. This game was fun, a lot of personality. And when Game Freak was doing something outside of Pokemon, sometimes they had hits. All right, so this is when I started cheating. Mario sports games at the time were some of the best I've ever played. So I'm gonna put them all in one. Mario Golf and Mario Tennis for the Game Boy Advance. And they probably have some names that I don't know right now. I'm not gonna look it up. You'll be okay. And we all know what these games consist of. Go around trying to be the best like no one ever was. No, it's not Pokemon. But the reason I want to see these games on here, even though they have counterparts, is because the RPG elements in these games are outstanding. You're not just running golf and playing golf, but there's an actual story mode. And these are the story modes that everybody wanted to see on Mario Golf, Super Rush, and Aces and Strikers. Like, it was a real JRPG. You had your character, boy or girl character, and you went around powering up, getting to know folks and doing things like that. It was a story. It was a real good story. And with 2D sprites and everything that they did with this game, it was amazing that the gameplay was so fluid for both. And it was a fun time, so I definitely hope that they bring those back. Coming in at number 4, we got another spinoff. And while I would say the Mystery Dungeon series, they did get a remake on the Switch. But one spinoff was pretty cool, but it also is a sequel. Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. And it takes a different take. Like, we got Pokemon Puzzle League and things like that, trading card game, but Pokemon Pinball was fun. And I never cared about playing a pinball game on my handheld or Game Boy Advance, but it worked so well and the gameplay was so addicting and fun. And if you know about Pokemon Pinball, you had to collect enough, points playing pinball, and then a Pokemon would appear and you can use the pinball, which is a Pokeball, to catch that Pokemon. So the music was cool, the stages was cool, and it was just exciting to see what Pokemon would pop up for you to catch. So I would love to see Pokemon Pinball back in action. And maybe we'll see something on Pokemon Day. I know that they hinted at Pokemon trading card game, but Pokemon Pinball was pretty fun. Coming in at number 3, one time for Felix, one time for Amethyst. All my Sonic fans, where are you at? some of my favorite Sonic games were on the Game Boy Advance, and that's the Sonic Advance series. And the reason I like this game so much because it really capitalized on the speed and variety, and the music was good, but it was also in your handheld form, so it felt like old school Sonic at the time, but also it reminded me of the anime because the characters had some of the same models, and the music, the gameplay, all pluses. Another cool thing about this was it connected to the GameCube back in the day. Of course, I don't know if we can do that now, but Sonic Advance was just a fun time, and I think a lot of people might have missed out on some of the best Sonic games ever. And they might not be aesthetically advanced to others. There might be some problems with some, but it was always fun with a lot of secrets, a lot of replayability. And again, the music and the visuals for the time on this little screen and this 16-bit 24, whatever it is, was dope. These next two, they could have been either way, but y'all know I had to say this one. Coming in at number 2 or number 1. The Pokemon series. I am cheating. The Pokemon series. I need Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire Red, Leaf Green. I need all of that to come because we're losing the DS shop. There is so much Pokemon that people never got to play, and it's easy money. Now, in my head, I think they wouldn't put it on here because you can literally sell these separately and make some bank, but I really would love to see these games be here for folks to go back and play some of the older generations like Gen 3 and Gen 1 in a different way that didn't get to, and those were some of the best Pokemon games at the time. Gen 3 is very good. Pokemon Fire Red and Pokemon Leaf Green were the better versions of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, and it was just a good time. I would love to see the Pokemon games on here, and the bonus for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color too. I know this is a Game Boy Advance video, but I would love to see those too since we're getting Pokemon Stadium. And who knows, maybe they'll be able to connect all of that together to Pokemon Home, or even to Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Stadium 2, so we can use our Pokemon there. That's a lot of wishful thinking that I don't think Nintendo will come through with, but if they do, that would be legendary. And coming in at number 1 or number 2, yeah, I had to go ahead and put it here. Mother 3. This is the perfect excuse for them to put this game here finally in America. So many fan translations. Mother 3 is definitely the best game in the series. One of the best games ever. Emotional journey. The gameplay system, the battle system. Everybody wondering where Lucas came from. He came from this game. And when I say this game was so good with the music intertwined into the battling system, the story of what Lucas and Klaus go through with their dad, like there are some things that are controversial, and I think that's why Nintendo won't bring it here. They don't want to deal with it. You don't gotta advertise, you don't have to promote, you can just drop that thing right there and be like, hey, Mother 3 is available for the first time, because it would be great. Now, we missed the Mother series. The Mother series is a great series that we probably won't ever see again, but I think people really need to see this game. So, Mother 3, please, Nintendo, just listen one time. One time, this is all I, if Mother, Prayer said, t-shirt this, write this, quote this, we ain't never getting it. And he might be right. But that's all for me today. Those are the games I want to see on Game Boy Advance online for Nintendo Switch. And I'm so happy that we even got what we have. But there are so many games in the Game Boy Advance library that people would enjoy today. Even some licensed games, but it would be a great time and a good time for folks to play some things from back in the day, and maybe some folks to learn their history a little bit about some of these franchises and why we enjoyed the Nintendo Game Boy Advance so much. What game do you want to see on the Game Boy Advance online for the Nintendo Switch? And did I miss out anything? I'm probably gonna make a part 2 to this because there are plenty of games. Let me know what games I should include in my next video. I appreciate y'all for watching. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.